Hello and welcome to Cahnmann's Current Events Roundtable. And today we have three amazing guests, and they're going to be talking about the healthcare system and how to fix it. So we don't have to worry about Congress anymore because we found the right guys here right on Cahnmann's Current Events Roundtable. And let me introduce you to them. On my right, Casual Tuesday, my lawyer and mentor, Irving Drobny. Welcome to Cahnmann's Roundtable.
Thank you, Susan. Glad to be here.
And you're going to really help me with these two doctors here. And to the right of me, I have Dr. Albert Miller. Welcome to our program, who is professor of clinical medicine. He's a cardiologist at Northwestern University. And to my left, this Dr. Isaac Reiser,
Nice to meet
internal medicine and cardiology, and welcome to Cahnmann's Roundtable. And as I said earlier, we're going to be fixing the healthcare system, just amongst the four of us, and we'll give the Congress what we've decided, and this is how it's going to be.
Great.
Okay, I got a quote from Charles Krauthammer, and I'd like to just read it. It's very short. He says, our crazy system, malpractice, suits result in massive and random settlements that raise everyone's insurance premiums and creates an epidemic of defensive medicine that does no medical good yet costs a fortune. And the Massachusetts Medical Society also has found that 5 out of 6 doctors admitted that they order tests, procedures, and referrals amounting to 25% of total solely as a protection against lawsuits, from lawsuits as well. So what do you think about this? Do you feel that that the procedures that doctors have to give is protecting themselves of getting sued? And in a second, we will explain what tort reform is, but I just want to hear my doctors at this point. Dr. Reiser, what do you feel about, do you feel that doctors are ordering more tests just to cover themselves?
Well, there is no question that we all are aware that we can be sued. So we want to touch all the bases, and sometimes by touching all the bases, we have to order some tests that maybe were not absolutely necessary. So there's no question that the fear of being a lawsuit may increase the healthcare monetary wise. And so maybe we have a lawyer here in the panel that can explain to us how to fix that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask him in just a second when I'm going to get to Dr. Miller. Now, if that's the truth, that they have to order tests, isn't that costing the patient? Is that why the people's our premiums are going up, our healthcare insurance is going up because doctors have to order all these tests, and some of those tests may not be necessary? But as Dr. Reiser said, that he has to make sure he has to cover himself just in case somebody decides, well, they want to sue because they didn't get a certain test, and what do you think about this?
Well, I think it's very important that patients have redress against bad things done by some doctors, and that the rights of the patient should not be altered in the sense that patients should be allowed to sue physicians. The problem is that the things get out of hand, that there are really suits against physicians that are inappropriate, that are really
Frivolous.
They are frivolous, yes, and they shouldn't be brought in the first place. So we need a system that prevents frivolous suits, that protects the correct approach that patients can use to deal with the legal system, but at the same time that takes the burden off of physicians so they don't have to order numerous and unnecessary tests.
Well, what do you think? Well, first of all, we talk about tort reform. Can you first of all explain, and we're going to be talking about medical tort reform today, explain a little bit what is tort reform? We hear that word all the time, and people use it, and I don't know, some people say it's this, and some people say it's that. So
Let me give you the definition of tort. The word tort comes from the English common law. It's a civil wrong. That means the benefit to the person who is suing is solely in monetary damages, as opposed to a criminal offense. If you do a crime, you go to the penitentiary or to the jail. If you're involved in a tort against either a doctor, it doesn't necessarily mean only a doctor, it means you allege somebody has done a civil wrong, then your only compensation is money. That's the definition. And a tort reform is a method of, as I understand it from Krauthammer's article, is a method of putting a cap on the amount of recovery that you're entitled to as a result of the alleged negligence or the intentional wrong of a doctor.
So what about to get the medical practice system abolish that practice? Is there a way that we, when somebody's suing, they should have a panel of? I think you suggested earlier, we all had a little lunch together, and you said something about that they should have a panel of doctors and lawyers. What was your idea about that?
Really, I'm not an expert on that, but probably one of the ideas is maybe to have a panel of maybe 2 doctors, 2 lawyers, and 1 independent individual prominent in that field, and they will evaluate the cases before they go to court, cases that are actually frivolous, and then they can dismiss or accept these cases depending on the
That's,
we don't have the
remember
joint-
they had something
Yeah.
in Indiana
Yeah.
where, if I remember right, it was 2 doctors and 1 lawyer who would evaluate the case before it went into the legal system, so that they would decide, is it a frivolous suit or is it a suit that has merit?
That's correct.
Some of the major states in the United States, i.e. Illinois, California, New York, and Florida, much of the legislation concerning medical malpractice is controlled by the Plaintiffs' Bar Association. And much to my chagrin, the bar associations have put limitations on the amount of what you suggested, Dr. Isaac, having a panel or an arbitrary board look at the facts of the situation and decide, A, if there is negligence, number 1, and number 2, how severe are the damages. I think that situation has to be clarified and modified.
So you think it should be on an individual basis, that everything is different, everybody's different? Like there was that case with the hot coffee, that there was on, remember the case with McDonald's and the hot coffee?
Yes.
And she won, quite a lot of money, and everybody said, well, how could she, this, first of all, they said she was the driver of the car, but it was an older lady, and I believe it was her grandson or her nephew that was the driver of the car. And what she did was she actually got into the car and she put the coffee between her legs to balance so she could get in and put her seatbelt on, and then somehow the coffee spilled and she got burnt all over her legs and terrible scarring, and the case that's the McDonald's case,
Yes.
Of the famous hot coffee. Now, I know when they settled, they said it was partially her fault because she put the coffee between her legs, and the other part of it was that the coffee was scalding hot, that even if she drank the coffee, if a person drank the coffee, their mouth could have gotten burnt inside. That's how hot the coffee was. So a lot of people refer to it as a frivolous lawsuit, but at the same time, was it really a frivolous lawsuit?
But that wasn't malpractice. That was somewhat different.
Yeah.
than what Krauthammer is talking about,
Yeah.
which is medical.
Yeah,
This was not a medical malpractice.
Right.
Yes.
Correct.
But she
I
was
just
scarred,
want-
but she was
Yeah, I
scarred, and
just
she
want
had to go to the doctor,
Yeah.
so it ended up, she was scarred and everything.
Yeah,
She
but
was burnt.
like Dr.
and-
Miller
yeah.
say,
Yeah.
actually this was not directly related to
Yeah.
health care in
Not-
itself.
but-
Obviously, after she got burned,
Right.
she had to go and see a doctor.
Exactly.
I just want to add that the question of tort reform is just one small area that need to be addressed with the total reform of healthcare in this country. This is the total reform of healthcare, and we can start maybe talking about primarily what the main topic now is Medicare. How to fix Medicare, what plans are necessary to control the cost of Medicare while at the same time delivering good care.
Now
That is the problem.
Now, you
tort
come from
reform.
you come from Cuba, and they have a different type of system there. All doctors, and it's the same system I believe that they have in France also.
No,
the
no.
doctors are paid by
No.
the government.
Well, in France, I don't know. It's the same system that they had in Russia. Remember, Cuba is a communist, economically and political society, communist, and the healthcare in Cuba is managed, control, and deliver and pay by the state. Okay, everybody is entitled to health care, and the doctors and anybody else is really paid by the state. The state is the one that controls the total health care in the country. Unfortunately, lately, I really have not been in Cuba for many years, so I don't know really the quality that is delivered. That's number one.
I can tell you the quality in Russia because I was there.
Okay, what was the quality
It's
in
no
Russia?
place to get sick. I mean, it's terrible.
Well, in Cuba, I know because I had a relative there that had some problem with his kidneys, that in the upper echelon of the society, the hospital that take care of members of the party or the military or the affluent people, then they have very good care.
Well, you know, you were talking about Russia, and I'm going to interrupt you right now, and you said, but in Russia, don't get sick in Russia. Just recently, a friend of mine got bitten by we weren't sure if it was a tick because we were both at a deer farm, and she had to go into the hospital. I took her right to the emergency room. She was developing a severe rash where the bite was on her ankle, and we took her to the emergency room, and the so-called doctor treated this patient, and I asked her when she came out, it was 2 hours, when she came out of the emergency room, I asked her what medication, what antibiotic did the doctor put you on, and she said she didn't put me on any medication, just put some cream. I said, let me take a look at this slip of paper, let me see what doctor that was. It wasn't a doctor, it was a PA, it was a physician's assistant, and the patient, my friend, was treated as though it was nothing. A day later, 2 days later, we got back from our vacation. She went to a dermatologist. Not only was it it became a staph infection inside, but it also had to be drained because of the venom that was still in her leg. And this is how she got treated at St. Joe Hospital in Michigan.
She going to sue St. Joe
Now,
Hospital?
let me ask you something, Irv.
Yeah.
You know, and the bacteria of this infection, the staph infection, is starting to get better, but this was how she was treated there. She was led to believe she was being seen by a physician, which she was not. And number two, she was not getting the care. They should have put her at least on an antibiotic. And she ended up, and she could have really had severe damage if we couldn't get her if she didn't get home.
Susan, let me give you a practical answer to this.
Okay, we got
There are a lot of wrongs that go on in this country, a lot of them. Medical, product liability, and not all of them are compensable because not all of them are worth it. When a lawyer looks at a case, when I looked at a case of potential medical malpractice, I looked at what was called permanency. In other words, I have to look down the road and say, how long is this person going to have to live with this condition? How severe is this condition? And what is going to be the outcome after either a period of months or years? If it wasn't for at least a period of number of years, the case wasn't worth bringing because it's too expensive to bring a medical malpractice case in a civil court without a potential of a lot of money down the line.
So you're
That's why
saying
you
it's-
see those
yeah.
programs on TV advertising for mesothelioma
Right,
and
right,
all these
right.
other diseases,
Yes.
because those are major diseases with permanent injuries.
So if we don't know, something like this could have been, she could have gotten very, very ill, but she wasn't treated in the way she, but we're talking
But
about
she-
medicine. I think what we're trying to talk about, and more so than suing or anything, that we're talking about the quality of the medicine. She did not get quality medicine.
Except you have to be careful, because there are physician assistants trained in the United States who are very good. So, it depends upon the particular individual and the particular circumstances.
Also, Susan, is
But don't when
very,
you go in an emergency room in a hospital, you expect to see, I know you see a nurse, but don't you expect to see a physician?
You see, the problem that we are having is a question of money. This country right now have to modify the delivery of health care. There are several programs, of which probably Dr. Miller is going to talk a little bit about the Obamacare.
Okay.
And I will maybe agree or disagree with some of the things that he say, but the question is that the government has X amount of money to allocate for the health care of the society. And the question is, what is the best system to allocate that kind of money to deliver health care to almost everybody, while at the same time not to diminish the quality? This is the main thing. And I'm sure that you are aware that different, how can you say, system or programs that actually, one is Obamacare, that some elements of the Republican Party disagree vehemently. There is the so-called Ryan Plan,
Right.
that is a
I have them both
different
here, by
plan,
the way. I
and
have
there
them-
are, believe it or not, there are 2 or 3 different ideas how to deliver health care the best way, the best quality, and to prevent the fact that actually that the government would not be able to finance the health care of this country because of the question of inflation. And there is another element.
Right.
I don't want to take too much time.
Yeah, because I
but-
got all these plans here. I got the Ryan, here's my Ryan plan.
There's
Here's my Obama
another
plan.
question. We have a question of
Yeah.
the demography of this country, in which right now Medicare is covering 44 million people. By 2030, we're going to have 78 million elderly people that has to be covered by Medicare unless there is reforms
Right.
done.
So how are we
And-
going to
Yes.
afford to do
Well,
this?
why don't why don't we ask Dr. Miller
Okay.
about the Obama plan
Okay.
and see what he has to say?
Yes,
Well,
let's
before
see
we
her there.
came, Suzanne mentioned
Yeah.
that she had a particular thought about the health care plan that had been offered by the present administration. Why don't you mention
Yeah,
it?
what I said was that I felt that, instead of going through everything that he did and wrote, this is just part of his plan, the Obama plan here, that maybe he should have just taken one thing, and that was pre-existing conditions. Everybody everybody, you have a pre-existing condition, you do, I do, and you do. And we were talking about our pre-existing conditions at lunchtime. Your back, my foot, each one of us have that's what we do. When we get to a certain age, we sit down at lunch and we talk about our conditions. And we all have these pre-existing conditions. And if he just would have dealt with everyone that wants to buy insurance can get covered with or without pre-existing. If you have a pre-existing condition, it doesn't matter. You still get covered. Why can't? What do you feel about that?
Well, I think the idea that the insurance companies could not prevent giving you insurance because you had a pre-existing condition is a new idea, and it was a good one, and it was very appropriate. The thing is, so-called Obamacare, which is the Affordable Health Care Plan, really goes further than that in the sense it deals with health care for youngsters. It deals with health care coverage for people up to the age of 26. And if we deal about the longer-term things, it deals with the cost of medicine. It deals with insuring a vast number of people now who do not have insurance, and so on. So that really Obamacare is really the opening door, the beginning to trying to deal with a universal health care in the United States. Do I think it's perfect? No. Does it have a lot of defects? No. But the conception...
Yes, it has a lot of defects, yes. No? You said no.
No, I don't think so far it does not have a lot of defects. But I think the conception that's being promoted by every one of the Republican candidates, every one without exception, is that they will, basically kill this whole plan across the board. That's the first thing they're going to do when they get to be President of the United States is sheer nonsense.
Let me ask you something. Or can they really, you're an attorney, and this is a law, right? This is a new law. Can they really repeal? Can they really, like Albert Miller said, can they do all that? Or this is a law. How can you change a law?
Theoretically, the answer is yes, they can. Practically, the answer is no, they won't, for two reasons. Number one, they've threatened not to fund the national health care, the Obamacare, as Dr. Miller calls it. And I think politically that would be a terrible decision for them. To repeal it would definitely cause them all kinds of political problems. Some of the things in the healthcare system are already in, and the people like them. Dr. Miller mentioned continuous coverage for students till the age of 26.
And pre-existing conditions are in there.
Pre-existing conditions are in there.
Yeah, nobody would want that taken away.
No, I'm not familiar with every one of the items in there. But let me just add something else here. Doctor brought it up. National health care systems, be they communist, European, South American, or otherwise, are never going to be perfect. The Canadian system is a decent system, but it's not perfect. There are always going to be Cadillacs in the system and Volkswagens in the system. The people who can well afford it are going to buy the Cadillac system. The people who can't are going to get the lesser system. But if your objective is coverage for all, not guaranteed Cadillac coverage for all, but coverage for all, then you have to make those strides toward it, and that's why the Republicans won't repeal
But what
the
about,
system.
wait a minute, what about right now? That sometimes myself and friends of mine, they can't get a doctor that will accept Medicare. There are doctors, they'll say, I'll take you, but you have to pay in advance. There's a
Okay,
doctor, I want to have
that's
some
important.
surgery done on my knee, but he won't take me, I have to pay first, and possibly I have to go and see what I can collect.
I want to-
And less will happen with that, too. More and more, I should say, doctors not accepting Medicare.
I don't disagree at all, or in general, with what Dr. Miller say or her. However, the Obamacare has 2 or 3 main issues. One issue is the fact that young people, who happen most likely the most healthy people in the society, has to buy insurance in order to be part of the pool, the total pool. And this is being gone to court.
It's going to go to the Supreme Court.
And
Right.
going to the
Yeah.
Supreme Court, and the likelihood, according to what some people are telling me, that it's going to be removed.
Accepted.
Well, we
No,
have that right now. We have
Would-
U.S.
I heard just
yeah,
the opposite.
We have U.S. judge rules. Virginia can challenge health care. We have appeals judge all over the place, and they're all appealing of different
I think,
states.
I think
Right now, got
what I heard is
healthcare overhaul
actually
is still
that the
set back.
government doesn't have a right to force people to buy insurance if they don't want it. That's issue number one. The other issues are the question of cost, the Obamacare. The question so much that actually that right now they introduce a new element to the Obamacare that is called the Affordable Care Act
Yeah.
that will involve a significant reduction on the amount of money that the provider and the hospital will receive from the federal government for care. That in itself can produce consequences. One of the consequences is you just mentioned
Right.
a minute ago,
Right.
that some people will not want to accept Medicare, and also the fact that there are other things that can happen. In addition to the Affordable Care Act, he introduced the fact that if inflation and healthcare continue, there is going to be an independent review board or something of that nature that is not an elected person that will have the authority to reduce the amount of money that is given to the providers, that mean doctors and hospitals. And all of that has problems. That's the reason, with due respect, there is a Republican plan that is called the Ryan Plan. Anybody wants to talk about
Well,
that?
I want
but I
to
just wanna be-
object to the Ryan.
Wait, we got 2 minutes, guys. I wish we would have the whole hour today because we really needed it. But Krauthammer, I just wanted to mention, said there is no logical reason to get insurance through your employer. The entire system is an accident of World War II wage and price controls. It economically is senseless. It makes people stay in jobs they hate, decreasing labor mobility and therefore overall productivity.
He's wrong.
And see, that's what he says, that should not be something that, that employers, because people do stay in jobs that they don't like, and it would make it more sense to have people not get insurance, they get insurance from a different source than from their where they work.
Susan, excuse me. You mentioned the Ryan Plan a couple of times
He
now.
did. Yes.
you,
Yes, I didn't mention it, but
please explain to me what it is. I don't know
We don't have too much
other
time.
than the use of the word.
I don't know. I'm
The Ryan
I'm
Plan.
not.
Well, I have what is the Ryan
can
Plan. It converts Medicare to a voucher plan, and new beneficiaries would choose a private health insurance plan from a government-run insurance exchange and receive a government subsidy paid directly to the insurance company toward the premiums cost. And it reduces government health care costs. It raises health care costs for because of Medicare and continues traditional, it will continue. The people that are receiving Medicare now get the Medicare. But it is a very complicated plan, and I cannot believe that the credits are rolling. I want to invite you guys back because we have only touched what this is all about. And we haven't fixed it yet because we're going to Congress with our bill.
I'd love to be
The
there.
Ryan
I
Plan.
want to thank you, Dr.
Oh,
Reiser.
thank
I know you want to talk more about the Ryan Plan. Thank you for being on the show. I
Thank
invite you back. And Dr. Miller, thank you for coming and your comments. And Irv, a pleasure to have you.
Great
I
to
always
be here
enjoy
with you,
your
Susan.
comments. And I think this is something that we need to discuss more. There is so much more to this. I mean, each one of us have our own thoughts. One of us are for the Obama plan, one is not too sure, and I want to thank you.